Video games. You all have probably been influenced by them in some way, shape, or form throughout your lives. You may play them on a regular basis, or you may not play them at all. One thing you may have never thought about is how they indirectly affect you, as opposed to how they directly affect you while you're playing them. Matthew and I have dedicated a large portion of time to researching how video games can affect you in other ways. We spend a majority of our time researching the most prevalent topics such as violence in video games, emotional effects of video games, video game addiction, and how ideas in video games differ from those in other media. We will begin with our most prevalent topic, violence in video games.
Video game violence used to be a much more controversial topic than it is now, but it still has a big, if not more, of an impact than it has had in the past. Because of the changing times, things are becoming more serious as they grow, but less of a problem to the public.
The first instance that made people start to think about violence in video games was in 1976 when a game titled Death Race was released. The game didn't feature visuals as good as what the video game industry has available today, but the game clearly depicted running over enemies with a car. Video game violence first came to be a public issue in 1993 at the release of 3 very violent video games by the names of Mortal Kombat, which featured extreme violence to the tune of torso-ripping fatality moves, Night Trap, which features a male protagonist protecting a house full of scantily clad women from oncoming vampires, and Doom, which created a genre of games called first-person shooters, where when playing, you see through the eyes of your character.
The first case where it was reported that a video game might have caused a violent act in real life was in the case of Harris and Klebold, who shot and killed 15 people, including themselves, at Columbine High School in 1999 after having their computer access restricted. Some say the reason for this tragedy was that they both enjoyed violent games like Grand Theft Auto and Doom. This incident even inspired a 31-year-old film director by the name of Danny Ledone to create a game called Super Columbine Massacre RPG, which puts a player in the shoes of the shooters. Is it games like these that create psychopaths, or do these games help us understand what was going on in the minds of the cold-blooded killers? There hasn't been a lot of study into the effects video games have on the psyche, but there are a few known facts about them. One thing that researchers have concluded is that it is possible to have aggression inside of games brought into the real world. However, it is unknown as to what the extent of this is. Until more is researched, there won't be a good understanding of the topic. There won't be more research done until it becomes more of a hot topic. Does the bad in video games outweigh the good?
The body of Jeremy Bowles was found this morning on a patch of wasteland in the East End at about 6:30 a.m., 5 days after he was reported missing.
In a video game, you don't control a character, you are the character. In games that focus on the story more than gameplay, it is more likely that they will alter your feelings. A good example of a story-heavy or emotionally heavy game is the 2010 game titled Heavy Rain. The game is completely story-driven and based off of QuickTime events. In the development of Heavy Rain, real actors were hired in which they wore motion capture suits to capture realistic character movements, which were then recreated in the game. Facial expressions were captured, also giving characters in-game realistic emotions. The game's developers even added a way to feel like the character by adding PlayStation Move support, which requires you to hold controllers in your hands that track your movements, making you perform actions that the in-game characters do too.
If you have ever watched a sad movie and it made you cry, imagine being the character in the movie. That is what games are trying to recreate. They have the potential to affect your emotional state much more than other media. This can be argued to whether this is a good thing, like helping PTSD patients recover, or a bad thing, like making a psychopath angry and killing you outside of the game.
Probably met someone who talks about video games all the time. It can be argued that this person is addicted to video games, or they just play video games way too much.
I'd have to classify it as a mental illness. Like a mental disorder that just overcomes you.
classify that when all other aspects of your life get interfered with because you're only playing video games.
Doing things constantly is not considered an addiction. An addiction is classified as an activity done frequently that, when stopped, has symptoms of withdrawal. In a recent controlled test, some cases showed symptoms, however, in most there were no side effects at all, and the side effects that were shown were mostly social. Until more research is done, there won't be an accurate term for playing video games too much. There is a fine line between being a gamer and being addicted to games, however, no one knows where this line is. We do know that some people play so much that the entirety of their social lives are affected. Games are easily made addictive when they compare scores with your friends, making you feel superior to them if you have the highest score. This is mostly prevalent in the highly addictive phone games that are sold for prices as low as $1. These games make you want to play over and over again, normally the same thing, until you beat your friends. It can be argued if this is friendly competition or unhealthy behavior. Video games are a topic that has sparked controversy all around. Violence, emotion, addiction, even the pros and cons of them over other media make us think. Do they alter you too much? Do the bads outweigh the goods?
Or is it the other way around? Do they make you ponder ideas and get thoughts flowing? Are they a good way to shine light on lesser-known topics? Do they make a difference?
Some important aspects of psychology in video games are shrouded in a cloud of media misinformation and biased opinion. You can help more research be done. Could they be good? Could they be bad? The more people who want to know, the faster we will know.